Hello, Zoo Med fans. We're at AnimalCon 2023, day one. We're rolling into the afternoon, and our next interview is with
Jay Tomsky. I am the filmer, editor, creative director at the Reptarium, and for Brian Barczyk, and I do all YouTube videos, thumbnails, photos, all kinds of good stuff.
And as many of you recognize the name Brian Barczyk, I'm sure. This is the behind-the-scenes guy. This is the guy that does all the actual work.
Yeah,
you know?
well, we all do a lot of work, but I do a lot of the creative digital side of the work that we get done at the Reptarium.
Give us a little more on that. Like, what does that entail? Like, what do you do?
Production, so coming up with ideas for shooting stuff, so that might mean like scouring YouTube for 2 hours to find videos in other genres. We don't look a lot in our own genre of reptiles or even animals for that matter. We'll look at bigger like creators like Airrack or Mr. Beast and like FaZe Rug and try to figure out like, hey, they did this, it worked really well for them, the thumbnail's cool, whatever. Can we bring this to the animal world in a way that's not like just for showing off? Like, can we bring education into this and stuff like that? So I'll spend about, an hour or something doing that. Then I go on to making a thumbnail in the morning. That might take 2 hours of my time to make the right thumbnail that's perfect. And then we put together they take the idea, make it into an actual video, and then start filming with the crew and Brian. And then then I go home, I start editing, and then depending on the video, I'll edit for anywhere from 3 to 10 hours, depending on what it is.
So like, how long of that 3 to 10 hours, how long of a clip did you just produce?
Usually we try to keep our videos around 12 minutes as best we can. Usually like a little bit over 12 minutes is the best, 12 to 15. But sometimes there's videos we've put out that we've spent all day filming, all day doing the stuff, and it's an 8 to 10 minute video. Just because you're trying to cut it down so much, so that trim the fat, if you will, Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of empty space when people talk, just like I just did right now. So I try to cut all that stuff out as much as possible.
No, it's wonderful. Are you a keeper yourself?
I am. I do keep reptiles. I've actually kept reptiles for about 10 years. I got my first ball python for my birthday when I first met my fiance. That led me into looking up as much research as I could about reptiles. I ended up finding Brian's channel and became a fan. And then I moved out of New Jersey, where I'm originally from, to Florida. And I was pretty bummed because I'm a Jersey guy. I love the cold weather. But I was like, if there's one thing that's good is I'm going to meet Brian Barczyk, because I know he goes to Gatorland all the time. So I'm going to get to see him. About 6 months later, he was coming to Gatorland. I went there and I pitched to him, hey, I love your stuff and I've been filming and editing. I want to make sure that I'm part of your team and part of the dream for the future. And he's like, give me your phone, I'll put my number in. And we started talking and the rest has been history.
So you just walked up to him cold.
Yeah.
Other than being a fanboy, there was nothing else really to go off of.
I used to comment on his videos, so like he kind of knew my name a little bit.
Sure.
But other than that, yeah, it was just a cold thing. Before I was filming, I was doing sales most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to kind of learn how to sell yourself. And I was like,
absolutely.
I know I have something that he would like to have around him, and I'm going to work super hard. So I just kind of pitched myself real quick, and then we, build a relationship like you would with a client, right? So I'd call him every morning and be like, hey, how's things going? What are you filming today? And we built a good relationship, and because we were both like-minded people, it was easy and kind of just flowed.
Any good stories, like anything first off, how long have you been with Brian?
I've been with Brian 4.5 years.
Okay.
So I think I started 2018-ish. So this next June coming up will be my 5-year anniversary with Mr. Brian. And oh my God, there's so many millions of stories.
Listen, you talked about like all of the filming you do and the time you spend, but all the chopping down that we don't actually get to see it. You guys should do like an outtake video sometime. I'm sure there's got to be like tons of hilarious outtakes.
Yeah, so it's actually a great idea, and I think it's something that we can do, and maybe even put on like a Patreon or something, because it probably wouldn't perform super well on our channel.
That's
because
fair.
it has to be people that really care about us.
Sure.
And we're trying our best to reach people that don't care about us or reptiles, because that's the whole goal, right? There's no use for us to preach to the converted. So like we want to get as many new people into reptiles and get them excited. And that's we try to do as our strong point. And we use tactics that Mr. Beast and Airrack and all these big creators use to get kids excited about their content and try to bring that over to reptiles so that those kids can also love animals like us.
Sidetracked. Any good stories?
Oh man, there's so many, but like it's hard to pick. We've done a lot of crazy stuff together, and Brian's been a super huge mentor to me. So like it's hard because there's so many. We've done so many trips. You've
obviously gone overseas, I'm sure. Like
we haven't yet because of COVID and life. Like we just haven't gotten to go overseas. But we've done a lot of travel in the States. We took a RV trip from Michigan all the way down to Dallas, Texas, all the way over to New Mexico and Arizona, up to Vegas, to Utah, Wyoming, went to Yellowstone. So that's a good one. We drove 2,500 miles to get to Yellowstone. That was like the ultimate goal at the end of this thing, was to get to Yellowstone.
So you went to Yellowstone from Michigan via Texas and...
Yes, we did a cross-country trip. We went around the entire country in a big circle.
What were you doing along the whole way?
So it was actually his son Noah's birthday, his 21st birthday. So the idea was like to get to Vegas, but we would hit like little different animal places. Sure. So like we went to Indiana and we hit Dez's place over at Cold Blooded Cafe, and then we went down to Oklahoma, visited Will Banks and saw his collection, Bob Clark, and then we went over to Texas. I don't know if we did anything super crazy animal-wise in Texas, but we did try to go eat the biggest steak that you could possibly eat. It's like some crazy like...
Did you succeed?
No, it was super expensive. It was like $100 per steak. And then after we tried to eat this giant steak, which we didn't end up doing, we ended up going to like Cadillac Ranch, where they have those Cadillacs dug into the ground. Took some cool photos and stuff. Arizona was the next stop, and we went to the Painted Desert and got to go trek around the Painted Desert, which looks, I mean, it's like another planet. Yes. It's unbelievable. It's like sand art from nature, and it's beautiful. Went to Vegas for Noah's birthday, had a great time for a couple days, but then the real goal after was to get to Yellowstone. Like, it's a park that is so famous.
It's amazing.
And like we've driven 2,500 miles around the country just to end up at Yellowstone. It's snowy because this is like November, so it's like snowy out.
So you were there when it started to get real cold.
Right,
yeah.
Freezing cold. We went from, and I mean, we went through every single climate during this trip. We went from super hot weather to cold, or started in cold, down to hot weather, then back over to cold, and then back to hot. So we drive 2,500 miles just to get to Yellowstone, and it's closed to traffic. It's closed to traffic.
They already closed for the winter.
They closed for the winter so that you can't mess up the trails and stuff.
Yeah.
So we traveled this whole trip just to go there, and then we get to the front end, it says closed, and we're freaking out. We did, however, get to travel through some roads that took us through parts of Yellowstone, and we had an amazing time. We ended up having them jump into the freezing cold water, a river that ran through the Yellowstone, and had them jump in and did some cool pieces, and it was an amazing trip, and it's something I will never forget for sure.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. So you're not... I mean, you're a keeper. You keep things, you have a few things, but you're more of the guy behind the scenes that's helping create content. What advice would you have to the future generations of creators? The ones that think they want to get into, whether it be in reptile or you obviously have experience in other areas too.
Yeah, of course.
What advice would you have for the next generation of creators?
I think the biggest thing is to be original, especially with the way YouTube and social media runs right now. There's always this idea of hey, we got to jack a trend, right? Something that's popular. Let me make a similar video. And I think that is a big thing that's happening right now, but I don't think that's always going to be that way. So trying to stay original and make content that you're proud of rather than just pushing out stuff because it's going to do well. And I think that'll get YouTube and TikTok into a better place where creators are really thriving and not just making something they know is going to do well because it's going to get the clicks. But that being said, do your research. Look up to people that are doing better than you and try to talk to them, ask questions, and just make sure that the story is everything. If you have good audio and a good story, the rest will fall into place.
Thanks. That's great advice. You heard it here, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you
very much.
Thank you.